In the evening of November 11, 2013, 18 years old Miranda Barbour was sitting behind the wheel of her Honda CR-V, headed to the Susquehanna Valley Mall in Selinsgrove, Grove, Pennsylvania, not far from where she lived. She was going to pick up a man she had met through an ad on Craigslist, where she offered companionship in exchange for money. She was hoping that this time things were gonna work out, because two men had already gone in touch with her through the same ad, but both didn't show up at the appointment. This time, when she got to the mall, she found the man already there waiting. She then pulled in front of him, allowing 42-year-old engineer Troy LaFerrara to climb in the car. The two then drove a few miles to the town of Sunbury, where the man had rented a house. The events that followed, along with the revelations made by one of the people involved, were so upsetting they would turn a local case into a nationwide investigation and make headlines all around the world. Miranda Dean was born in 1995 in the small town of North Pole, Alaska, part of the broader Fairbanks metropolitan area, to her loving parents Sonny and Elizabeth. She also had an older sister named Ashley. On the surface, just a normal child, living in a picturesque location. But when delving deeper into her past, a darker picture begins to emerge. At the early age of 4, she was sexually molested by her pedophile uncle, a man named Richard Fernandez, who at the time was married to her mother's sister Melissa. The man was eventually arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison for sexually abusing a minor. He was released in 2004 and arrested again in 2011 for distributing child pornography. About the incident, Miranda's mother would later say, "It was bad. I never let her stay anywhere except for my sister's house, and I was devastated when I found out." After that damaging incident, Miranda's parents decided to move a few hundred miles south, to the Wasilla and Palmer area of Alaska, close to the city of Anchorage. For a while, life seemed to quieten down for the family, with both daughters attending local schools. But the intense trauma suffered by Miranda always remained, bubbling beneath the surface. And by the time she was 12, it began to manifest itself in the worst possible way. She started running away from home and fell into the clutches of a 25-year-old Satanist, known to her only as Forrest. She got hooked up with a guy who was into satanic stuff, her mother said. And when she came home one day, she told me that he owns her now. I asked her what she was talking about, and she told me that this man owns her, and she has to do whatever he says. She said he branded her by carving a swastika on the back of her neck, and his name on her thigh. She told me she was out prostituting at 12 years old, and that this man was a ruler. From that point on, Miranda fell in a dangerous downward spiral. She officially attended Palmer School's Colony High and Valley pathways, but other former students barely remember her, as she was always skipping classes. During that time, she became addicted to heroin and claimed that she had become pregnant and had been subjected to a brutal home abortion by the satanic cult she belonged to. Though when she told about it, her mother immediately brought her to see a doctor, who said there were no signs of an ended pregnancy. Miranda's issues followed her into her teenage years. According to a family friend, she would run off for a little while. Her parents would go and look for her, and she would turn up a couple of days later. In an attempt to tackle her drug problems and mental issues, Miranda's parents put her into North Star Behavioral Center in Anchorage. She was in and out of the institute throughout her teenage years. She eventually fell pregnant for real at age 17, while still under the influence of Forrest and the satanic cult. Miranda never revealed the name of the father, but according to her mother, it could have been a number of people. That period coincided with the breakdown of her parents Elizabeth and Sonny's marriage, with Miranda's father moving to Texas. Following her divorce, Elizabeth decided to send her daughter to live with her uncle Arlen Fletcher and his wife Laria in North Carolina. Despite her obvious issues, Miranda seemed to settle into life with her extended family. Pictures on Facebook show her looking happy at Arlen and Laria's wedding, and even petting a horse during a day out while she was still pregnant. She gave birth to a daughter she named Daria, and seemed to love her baby, posting a number of cute pictures of the little girl on Facebook. It was in North Carolina she met 21 years old Elite Barbour. The two quickly fell in love and moved in together in a house in the town of Coates. They got married only a few weeks later, on October 22, 2013, before relocating to Salinsgrove, Pennsylvania. On December 4th, Elite Barbour asked a local newspaper for an interview. He had just learned, through a brief phone call from Northumberland County Prison, that his wife Miranda had been arrested the night before, in connection with the murder of 42-year-old Troy LaFerrara, who was stabbed to death 22 times on the 11th of November. According to the police report, he was still clinging to life in the passenger seat, choking and gasping for air, while she drove around Sunbury in a red Honda SUV, looking for a place to dump his body before fleeing the scene. That sounds like she was a cold killer, Elite told reporters. That is not her at all. She's not a killer or a prostitute. He then proceeded to explain that what his wife did was simply offer companionship to wealthy men, with whom she had delightful conversations, making anywhere between $50 and $850 depending on the occasion. Some men wanted to take her to dinner, some simply made her gifts. He said he supported his wife's business because she always made it very clear from the start that there would not be any sex involved. According to him, Miranda's activity had already led to 35 uneventful meetings in the past year, so he was shocked when he heard the news. He hadn't even noticed anything strange in the car when, after having been with LaFerrara, his wife had come to pick him up to celebrate his 22nd birthday in a local strip club. Elite then claimed he only found out about Miranda's involvement after they were both summoned by police to be interviewed. When he got back home at about 2 a.m., his wife broke down and told him that after he had gotten in the car, LaFerrara had tried to put his hands on her and was becoming violent, so she had no choice than to grab the knife she kept in the vehicle for protection and stab the man in self-defense. After hearing his wife's account, Elite responded that she had to go back to the police and tell them what happened and that it was self-defense, so he drove her back to the station and left. He then didn't hear anything from her until he received that phone call from prison. The following day, social services arrived and took Miranda's 1-year-old daughter, deeming him too stressed to care for a child. "I lost my wife, my stepchild, and my life all at once," he said. "I can't sleep at night. I'm alone in a room with an empty crib and a lonely bed." Elite then concluded the interview saying he still was confident in his wife and trusted her and what she told him. 2 days after this interview, Elite Barbour was arrested and charged with criminal homicide for the murder of Troy LaFerrara. After combing through video surveillance footage and analyzing evidence found in Miranda's car, as well as her phone records, police had been able to come to their own conclusions about what had actually happened on the 11th of November. After having picked LaFerrara up from Susquehanna Valley Mall in Salinsgrove, Miranda had driven a few miles to the house the man had rented in Sunbury and parked outside. She then signaled with a tap on the leg to her husband Elite, who was hiding in the back seat underneath a blanket, to come out and strangle LaFerrara from behind using a cord, while she stabbed him over 20 times. The couple then drove around for a few minutes, looking for a place to dump their victim's body, eventually deciding on a dark alley on Catawissa Avenue. After having disposed of the body, the two went to a local department store, where video surveillance showed them shop for cleaning supplies, before heading to a strip club to celebrate Elite's 22nd birthday. The news of the couple's arrest had mostly spread locally, where the murder had caused much commotion, until Miranda, in an interview from prison to a local newspaper, made claims so shocking they captured the attention of every major news outlet in the nation. According to what Miranda revealed during the interview, LaFerrara wasn't her first victim. She was introduced to murder at the tender age of 13 by the leader of the satanic cult she had become a member of in Alaska. She said she went with him to meet a man who owed the cult leader money. "It was in an alley and he shot him," she said. "Then he said to me that it was my turn to shoot him. I hate guns. I don't use guns. I couldn't do it. So he came behind me and he took his hands and put them on top of mine and we pulled the trigger. And then from there, I just continued to kill." Miranda told the interviewers she committed the majority of the murders in her home state of Alaska. but also in North Carolina, Texas, and California. She also claimed to have a satanic alter ego called Super Miranda, who took control when she killed someone, and to have a favorite knife that had notches on it, one for each of her victims. When pressed by the journalist to reveal how many she'd killed, she initially said less than 100. The interviewer then asked for a specific number. She answered, "I stopped counting at 22," adding that she only killed bad people who didn't deserve to live anymore. About LaFerrara's murder, she said that it was her husband's first. They had attempted the same scheme twice before, luring men through online ads, but those who had responded didn't actually show up at the meetings. They did it just for thrills. They wanted to kill someone, anyone, together, as a sort of bonding ritual. She said about Elite that he was proud of what he had done, and that she would always love him, and also that she had no regrets for any of her alleged crimes. "I know I had a 20-year window where I would possibly get out of jail, and I don't want that to happen. If I were to be released, I would do this again," Miranda concluded. "By no means is this a way to glorify it or get attention. I'm telling you because it is time for me to be honest." If the claims Miranda made during this interview turn out to be true, it would make her one of the most prolific serial killers in US history. As soon as the interview was published, it sent media into a frenzy nationwide.
Shocking confession from a Pennsylvania newlywed.
And rocketed the case to the front pages all around the world. Authorities, however, didn't take long to express doubts on the truthfulness of Miranda's claims, as there was absolutely no evidence to corroborate them. Some speculated she might have made such claims in an effort to be deemed mentally unstable and not suitable for the death penalty, against which she already pleaded, describing it as a cruel and inhumane punishment. Some simply thought she said it to get more attention from the public. The same doubts were raised by Miranda's own family members, with her father stating, "The incident with the gun is possible, because in Alaska she ran away from home twice for a 48 hours period. But she's only been to California once and Texas a few times, and she was never out of my sight." Believe very little what Miranda says. She's the most manipulative person I've ever known. She spent most of her life in and out of treatment facilities after she became hooked on heroin, but was always able to talk the doctors into letting her out of treatment. She craves attention, is selfish, dishonest, and manipulative. I will always love her. However, only God knows what she needs or how to reach through to her. For a father who has taught his children the importance of integrity, honesty, and compassion, this hurts me deeply. In the end, both Elite and Miranda Barbour pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and went to trial in September 2014. On that occasion, Elite expressed his regret, saying, "There are no words to say how sorry I am for committing this act. This misrepresents the person I am. If I could go back, I know I would not have done this." Words that, however, contrasted with the teardrop tattoo he had gotten while in prison, celebrating the murder he committed. Asked whether she wanted to address the court, Miranda Barbour simply said no. They were both sentenced to life in prison without parole, with the judge blessing Miranda for the unsubstantiated claims she made of having killed dozens of people, saying how she received a lot of attention and raised concern in the community. Troy LaFerrara was described by his family as a good citizen, a good friend, a good husband, a good son, a good brother, a conscientious hunter, and a respectful outdoorsman who would always answer the call to help a friend. He was survived by his wife Colleen of 11 years. This was the story of Miranda Barbour. If you found it interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also feel free to leave a comment below if you have any suggestions, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching.